Why, hello there, and it is time yet again to review another toy from the show that I stopped watching. We are taking a look at Transformers Adventure TAV-30 Battle Grimlock. Here he is, just for a general robot mode size comparison with the rest of the RiD2015 crew. I've not included any of the kind of auxiliary characters or the guys who have joined the show since I stopped watching, because I got about 5 episodes in, and I kind of stopped caring for it. It's very, very repetitive, and frankly very childish, and I find that very disappointing after Prime, because that show was so good. But anyway, I really do like the toy line, and this new Grimlock figure is definitely no exception to that. It is so much nicer to have a properly scaled Grimlock that is not the same size as all the other characters, because that's wrong. And especially now with little Legends Fix-It, we can generally have a pretty show-accurate toy line for the first time ever, really. There's usually always at least one character you just can't get in a proper scale, and we kind of don't have that problem now with RiD2015, so that's nice. It has that going for it. This mold is a really very, very heavy retooling of the Generations Fall of Cybertron Grimlock. It is essentially the same toy. There's not really any difference except for the fact that all of the outward shelling and molding and stuff is all completely different. So I think I went through it with the original mold, and the only things that are the same are like the upper thighs and something else that's, I think, like these dinosaur hands are even remolded. Like virtually everything on this toy is a callback to the other mold and works the same way as the other mold. But other than the sword and the shield, obviously, everything is pretty much retooled on here somehow. And there's a lot more going on back here. Not a lot more, but there's enough more going on back here that it's a little more intricate in the transformation, just marginally, than the original. So that's nice. There have been tons of reviews reviewing this mold, so I'm probably not going to go over the transformation. I'm just going to take a look at his robot mode here, and then take a look at the dinosaur mode compared to all the other vehicle modes and stuff, and then we will call it a day, because he's not any different than the toy people have reviewed 50 billion times, so I won't waste your time. But there's a lot of really nice like paint detailing going on in here. This is a Takara product. Their Transformers Adventure line is the line for their RiD2015 cartoon, but they've also included a bunch of random older molds from animated and some Generations molds, and I don't totally know why they're doing that. Their show, as far as I know, is just our version dubbed into Japanese, so I don't know why they're throwing a whole bunch of other random characters into the toy line, but I guess they wanted to beef it out a little bit more, which makes sense since the American toy line is pretty sparse. If it gets this out of it, I'm very happy, because this is a significantly better take at this Grimlock in relation to the rest of the toy line than the Warrior. And the Warrior figure's not a bad figure. I do kind of like its transformation a little bit more than this one still. I like the way the legs transform on the Warrior class, but the size class and the coloring and all the things on this are it really just does win in that regard. And just to put my money where my mouth is, here he is with Warrior Grimlock. So you can see how they stack up against each other. Obviously, huge size difference, and totally different mold, so there's a little bit of difference there. I'll be honest, like, I'm not a huge fan of this mold, just due to the hollowness and a lot of the same complaints that people had about the FOC Grimlock, so I probably would have been satisfied if they had just upscaled this mold to this size, to be honest. I'd like a Voyager version of this mold would have been fine for me if they had fixed this stupid floppy, ratchety elbow thing going on. I'm not upset with this toy. I do really, really like it. It's nice, and I ended up liking it a lot more than the original version of this mold, actually, which surprised me. But I'm still just not sold on the mold itself being great, but they did a lot to kind of make it feel a little bit chunkier in certain areas, so it's definitely a very nice toy, and in terms of scale and stuff, it's huge improvement over this tiny little guy, because, again, when you start throwing the other characters into the mix, it doesn't really make much sense for Grimlock to be tiny. I mean, this is right, that's just wrong, so that to me is a huge selling point. And again, putting my money where my mouth is, here are those two versions. Obviously, I have the Iron Factory chest thingy, so you can ignore those wings. They don't normally exist on that mold, but other than that, it is the same. Same general thing. But as you can see, really every single part of this is different in some way. I think it's just these forearms down here. And I don't remember what the other thing was. There's something else that is the same between both of them. Oh, it is the arms, sorry. So the arms are the same, and this forearm chunk here is the same, and I'm pretty sure everything else on the figure is remolded. Oh, sorry, the little feetsies are the same. And probably the tail thing back here, I would guess, is probably the same. So, and then obviously like the joints and stuff like that, but all of the visible, like, actual toy parts have been pretty heavily remolded to look like Grimlock from the TV series, which is pretty cool. And again, the paint is just really nice. All the little tiny details everywhere are very, very noticeable, especially because they're yellow. They pop out a lot. Even like tiny little details like these little lines around here are very nice. And there's some kind of molded dimples in between all of those, so that same general design is on here, but they just kind of extended it into a bigger arm piece. Very nice job. Here he is in his robot, or dinosaur mode. And he's got the same hollowness problems that the mold had before, so whatever. Looks fine. I actually like the way he looks better than the original. Very, very, very similar, but the remolding just, I think, lends a little more to this. And here he is with the warrior version. And there he is with everyone else in their all modes. So again, much more accurate scale to the television show in terms of how much bigger he is to the other bots. And I'll just cover real quick the few bits that are kind of unique to this toy. During transformation you probably saw that this whole section up here is a little bit different in that it folds down like this, but then this other top part here kind of spins around. And this all compacts into there. So it becomes a little bit more of an enclosed box. So that stuff is pretty unique. On the original one it just folds back, so that's cool. And the other thing is, on this one there are two pegs on either side of the torso that peg into the outside there, instead of it pegging into the upper inside part of the well the way it does on the original mold. So that is also much nicer. I think it looks a little bit better, and it's also easier to do when you're not kind of sneaking the legs underneath other plastic, and you don't have to bend anything. And then he has jaw articulation on both the top and bottom. They did remove the light gimmick, which I am all for, because I do not like sounds and light gimmicks ever, so I would rather have a posable mouth than the little flame this thingy. I much prefer just having the ability to pose the mouth. So when all is said and done, I'm really happy that Takara put this toy out, and I'm happy that I got it. It's definitely an improvement in size over the Warrior class figure. It's a little unfortunate that they didn't just upscale the Warrior class transformation instead of remolding a mold that was already kind of contentious. I mean, people are pretty hard on this mold frequently, but they did a good job with the retooling. It looks really nice. I ended up liking it more than the original, so that's always good. The paintwork is very nice. It fits into the rest of the line very, very well, so I think it has a lot going for it. If you are in the market for a larger Grimlock and you don't want to get one of the 3-step or 5-step giant monstrosity things, then this is probably for you. But if you don't really care and you're satisfied with the Warrior, importing a Japanese toy is probably not something you feel super compelled to do, especially for a subline like the RiD toys. So take that for what you will. I'm happy I have this. It's a really well done toy. I think it's probably higher in quality than the original Fall of Cybertron version of it. So I think it gets good marks, but it's definitely not a must-have unless you are a super completionist and you definitely want an in-scale version of the cartoon cast from this toy line. So thank you guys for watching. I will see you next time.